third part of adapting a melody, now that we've got all our basic information in there and then we've made some rhythmic changes, is to go back and think a little bit about articulation. Um, Part of our changing of the rhythms is to make things sound jazzier, or at least more idiomatic, depending on which particular groove or style you're going with. Now we want to go back and make sure we fill in some additional information if we have sort of a clear vision on how we want things articulated. It should be noted that anytime you have a quarter note, the quarter note can be interpreted many different ways. And if you're writing an ensemble section, we might leave things more vague because we might leave those decisions up to the lead players. Other times, if you have a very sort of specific idea, we want to be very clear about what things are going to be short, what things are long, what things are accented, and what things are more smooth. In this case, because I'm writing the melody with the idea that there are going to be some backgrounds and other hits behind it, I'm going to be ultra specific, which I think is also sort of helpful for our example here. You'll notice I'm using a fair amount of capped accents. Again, if you want a note that's short, that has a lot of note front, but has space between the notes, that's probably the preferred articulation. We do see staccatos, but a lot of times those are generally for more lighter moments, and a lot of times don't line up with other syllables that we might think if we were sort of singing through or sort of imagining the melody in our heads. When I'm thinking dot, D-O-T, it's a very sort of strong syllable, has a very short tongue cutoff. It could be long, it could be short. A lot of times I'm thinking sort of that capped accent. If I'm thinking dit, then I might be thinking more sort of staccato sounds. I've already mentioned, I'm sort of going pretty fast here as I'm adding in all these articulations. Generally, if I find something that's on an upbeat, especially something that's longer or more held out, I'm very likely to put an accent over that. Do da. I might be thinking more da than do. So if I was singing through something and I was thinking the da syllable, I'm very likely that I'm going to put the sideways accent over it. One bar of note that I just passed that's of particular interest when it comes to articulation is a phrase where almost everything is syncopated. In the first bar, or I guess it's bar 9, where almost everything is on an upbeat. In this case, I've chosen to give sideways accents, which will encourage the player to hold out everything in sort of a longer duration. Not all sideways accents. There's a few legato markings in there. This is in large part just to have sort of a smooth playing of those. It's very possible that if you used shorter notes or shorter accents, that the players might interpret that a number of different ways. But in this case, I definitely want do da 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 do da, which I think comes across pretty well, unlike my singing. Again, you'll notice that every time I have a sort of longer note that falls on the upbeats, I'm very likely to use the accent. When it comes to quarter notes, I'm trying to be very specific as to whether I'm using a short sound or a long sound. And then in certain phrases where there's a lot of syncopation, I'm also making sure that I give a lot of direction there. When it comes to adding dynamics, right, one of the most critical components is that we not only include dynamics as part of the melody, so we have a frame of reference where to start, but we also give the rhythm section some guidelines for where we are at. This is incredibly important for the drums and is probably one of the top 3 or 4 things that the drummer's probably going to be looking for. So making sure that all dynamics are copied over into the rhythm section parts, especially initially, is incredibly important. Furthermore, when we're thinking about the rhythm section parts and sort of finalizing this before we begin to add the other horn parts and other potential backgrounds, it's also very helpful to provide some extra guidance for the rhythm section and let them know like what's happening. As jazz arrangers, one of our goals is to make sure that our chart is read perfectly the very first time. And one of the things that can enable this is providing some extra guidance about what is happening on the other parts. In some cases, you could even potentially copy over some of the melody into these parts so they can see it. In other cases, just providing a little bit of text saying, oh, here's trombone melody. Here's where the trumpets come in. Here's where the saxophones come in. Might save a ton of time and also help the drummer sort of read things correctly. Again, because this is sort of a single instrument feature, I'm not writing in a ton of dynamics, but I know I will end up using a forte piano there in the last bar to provide a little bit of excitement. On to part 4.